These are an incredible model. The amount of detail that comes as standard is immense, pushing the limits of plastic injection molding to the absolute limits. A big hello to you! It is so great to see you, and I hope I find you well. I'm Jenny Kirk, welcoming you up here to Weir Yard, and today we're going on a journey across the Atlantic Ocean and taking a look at an all-new range of freight cars that have been released to the North American hobbyist market. These come from Roka prototype models of the ubiquitous Autorack design, and they've tooled up for a whole host of different detail variants, liveries and running numbers that ensure that they can produce pretty much any example of these freight cars from any period in their lifespan. And they include some really innovative new manufacturing techniques to be able to get the perforated sides that you can actually see the cars inside the models through if you load them up with autos, and there's no bleed through of the different coloured paints from inside and outside. It's really quite interesting, and I saw this demonstrated on What's Neat this week, and it got me thinking that it'd be really nice to take a look at how the Yanks are producing some amazing models. So come with me in association with Trainomatic, makers of DCT decoders and accessories that are designed by enthusiasts for enthusiasts. Find the full range available to order now at tramfabrique.co.uk. Additional support comes from Roka prototype models, where detail, accuracy and value for money go hand in hand. With their debut model of Safe-Pak Autoracks wowing model railroaders alike, now is your chance to order these in road names and configurations to accurately reproduce Autorack workings from 1974 to the present day on your model railroad. Order today from rokamodels.com and see the full range for yourself. Well, I'm really looking forward to taking a good close look at these. I've got a secret love of North American outline freight cars, locomotives, and indeed some of the locations as well. Really, really interesting modelling potential. And I'd like to thank again Roka Prototype Models for sending these over for review. So do they live up to all that has been said in the press over in North America about these? Well, today we're going to take a good close look. One of my secret loves is North American outline modelling. I just love not just the vast spaces that the US railroad modellers tend to recreate, but the very different working practices, aided in no small part by the vastness of North America, which makes railborne traffic very much economical. And we see an awful lot of things like single box cars being worked into customers because it's actually more economical than driving cross country in a truck with the same load. It's also the case that North American outline prototypes have afforded to them a much more generous loading gauge, and no more so than illustrated by these Roka models Autoracks that are recently being released to the market. Based on a prototype that were built in response to increased levels of vandalism to autos which were being shipped by rail in the previous generation of wagons, the idea behind these was to protect the contents from being tampered with en route, either by people throwing objects at them from overbridges or from the trackside, or more commonly by the autos inside the wagons being broken into, and items such as stereos and car batteries being stolen from them. And given the length of an awful lot of North American trains, it would be very difficult for the crew to actually notice that anything was amiss before the train reached its end destination. So these auto trains did provide rich pickings to the ne'er-do-wells. There were a number of competing wagons that were built, and one of the successful ones were termed the Autoracks by a particular manufacturer, and it's these that Roka models have produced ready to run in all the different versions suitable for the conversions throughout their lives, right through from the early 1970s when they were introduced to the 1990s when they started to be phased out from the various railroads. When they came to the rails, it was also the case that the American market, just like the UK market as well, was going through a little bit of a downsizing, and this was in no small part due to the oil crisis, which made gasoline prices go up quite considerably and turned people's attention and focus towards much more fuel-efficient vehicles and therefore smaller ones. Now, America probably is very stereotypically associated with these vast land yachts, but it was during this period that products such as the Ford Pinto and the AMC Gremlin came to the market and were much smaller than cars that had gone previously. And this allowed the design of the Safe-Pak to feature 3 different levels inside, each of which could be filled with cars, and this meant for a very high utilization of the space within these wagons. It also did put them right up there at the limits of the US loading gauge, so much so that you can see on this particular example the legend at the top, this car excess height, and that meant that these were banned from certain routes. And certainly there's been a video circulating online of a train of what looked like Autoracks having been misrouted and being taken underneath a railroad overbridge that is quite happily slicing off the roof like a tin opener going into a tin of sardines, and you could imagine the millions of dollars of damage being caused doing that. Because of this issue with routing, it was also the case that later on in their life lower roof variants were made, and also ones such as this in the Union Pacific colours that had the roof completely removed, as well as losing those clamshell doors at the end to keep them within the loading gauge. The models that Roka prototype models have sent over feature 3 different railroad names and some subtle different designs, but overall in the range, Roka prototype models have actually brought 44 different wagons to the market, and this caters for a number of different running numbers to allow a reasonable rank to be very quickly built up. But also we've got 10 different railroads, 11 principal different livery styles from those 10 different railroads, but then we've got detail differences such as high roof, low roof, tri-level, no roof, and bi-level, and mixing and matching in between. So it does give plenty of scope for these throughout their prototype existence. These particular models are production models, but they have been flown over without their boxes ahead of the main production run, which I'm told have actually docked in the last week at the port of Seattle, so should be within the next few weeks being distributed out to customers who have pre-ordered them. What's interesting as well for me is when you go to Roka Prototype Models' website, if you've got your cookies set up correctly, it actually detects where in the world you are and adjusts the prices. So what we're actually looking at here for those in the UK, if you're interested, £91 for each of these, and they do some bundle deals either for all of the different running numbers for a particular style and railroad, and indeed right up to you can buy a bundle of all 44 Autoracks if you want to go Pokemon and collect them all. Moving 2 of these to one side for now, I'm going to start with the Canadian Pacific version. So these would also have been seen right up into Canada, and certainly there's not as much demarcation between the railways of Canada and the US as there might well be between Britain and Europe, it's not the case that much travels between Britain and Europe, but certainly between Canada and the US. There's fairly free flowing of freight cars as and when the requirements are there for the freight flows. This is a slightly lighter livery than the Seaboard system that you see up there. And actually, this is really good at showing off some of the innovations on these models. The really big deal is these sides. Those perforations that you see there are actually all the way through. But this is injection molded, and it is incredibly fine. It's actually pushing the technology to the very limit. And when I was listening to Robert Steers from Roka Prototype Models talking about these on the What's Neat This Week show, he was talking about how it really has pushed the limits of the technology, whereas previously you would have had brass etchers to be able to produce this, which in turn would have produced a lot of difficulties in the painting of the models and would have bumped up the cost considerably. This new method means that you can get the fidelity of these tiny little holes. I think they're about, I think they quoted just under 20 thousandths of an inch for each of these. You can actually get these and you can just about make out the tri-level floors that are inside this wagon. On the ends, we've got those clamshell doors with all the rivet detail. You can also see the internal floors just about through these little gaps in the end. We've got separately fitted handrails across all of this. And this is something that I just love North American models for. The amount of detail that comes as standard is immense. And there are no user-fitted parts on these. Everything you see comes fitted to the model and finished straight out of the box. The chassis here appears to be die cast, and that gives a lot of low down weight, and it means that despite the fact that these are quite tall models, they're very stable on the track when running. On the underside, you can see all of the prototypical brake rigging there, leading from the pipes, which are factory fitted on the ends. Right across, we've got the correct pipework going to the bogies or trucks in North American parlance. These are metal wheels, and you can see there that the ends of the axles are correctly finished and correctly spin as per the prototype. These trucks are secured with a center screw and are very free moving, but that screw does hold them nice and secure. But if you need to, makes it very easy to remove them. We've got the rest of the air pipes, tanks, actuators, and all of this plumbing underneath is prototypically correct. And when you follow it, you can see it goes to everywhere that it needs to go. We've got accurately portrayed that very substantial chassis and the printing as well. A lot of subtle printing. So we've got for restricted loading only seat equipment register, and that'll be to do with routing, I guess, and also the heights in each of the decks. MW wrought steel wheels, raised wheel seat axles written on there. Everything I can see is crisp and clear, even down to the red and white striping on here. We've got, I think that could be the tear weight for the wagon. We've got a lot of information and it is all crisp and clear, and I actually really like this light livery. It does show off the model quite well. If you're wondering on a size comparison, well, here is a UK PAL brick wagon, and just bear in mind this is 00, this is HO, so this is actually to a slightly bigger scale than this. If this were in HO, it'd be slightly smaller, and you can see just how much the loading gauge is pushed to the max. And certainly when this was running on Weir Yard, it was right at the limits of what I thought was a very generous loading gauge when I built the layout. Now the wagon which I'm going to show you to really show off some of the incredible detail on here is this one with no roof. And the reason for this, you can see the insides correctly finished in this white. We've got the different decks all perfectly reproduced, all that internal detail including the adjustment on the deck heights internal handrails, everything is in there. And if I just place a car inside, you can see just how well and how crisp and clean those holes through are. You can see the car there. And that is all injection molded, meaning that the cost is kept down. You still get an incredible product, but without all of the intricacies of having etched brass sides, which would massively increase the cost of this. On this particular model, we've got the Union Pacific shield there, accurately reproduced, and it is really a standout item. Again, we've got all of the brake detail on the underside, and where this differs is we've got no roof, bringing down the overall height, although I'm guessing that you still have to be careful on loading this, that the actual cargo didn't go beyond the roof height. Later on in their lives, one of the big changes was that these auto racks found themselves being needed to transport the changing tastes of American automobile purchases. And they went from those small economical cars of the oil crisis era of the 70s back towards those bigger lumbering cars and onwards into the rise of the pickup truck as well. And that meant that with the extra headroom required, some of these auto racks were converted, with the tri-deck arrangement giving way to bi-deck to give the headroom for the larger truck bodies of things like the F-150 Fords and such like. The final of the three wagons which Roka prototype models have sent over is this seaboard system design. Again, we're back to the roof on top and these clamshell doors, which personally I love the look of these. I think they've got a very imposing presence, and these would personally be my choice, although obviously if you're pushed on loading gauge, it may be that just like the real railroads, you'd need to go for the lower roofed options. Again, we've got this car excess height written on the end, and that seems to be a regular warning to try and make sure that these aren't routed away from where they would actually fit through tunnels and under bridges. Again, we've got crisp and clean printing on these, and one of the other areas I really like on this, and I'm just going to show you, is this chain detail on here. That's actually molded. These are separately applied pieces, but I actually really like this. I wouldn't have thought that a molded plastic chain would have worked, but they've captured the look and feel of a dangling chain perfectly. And we've got a lot of robustness there that actually miniature chain wouldn't really work. And certainly in the UK, we've seen models experimenting with real chain, and it does add delicacy, which this does away with without being a compromise. And for me, that is a subtle but important detail point, which I think really does look good. The models come, all of them, fitted as standard with KDs and are just ready to roll on your railroad layout. Running on Weir Yard, these actually performed faultlessly. They were super smooth through the track work, and I had no issues whatsoever with them following in the tow of an Alco PA A and B unit from MTH. They ran flawlessly for upwards of 45 minutes before I put them away, and even though those Autoracks are truly massive, they still fitted within the loading gauge of the standard tunnel portals, and I only needed to remove one smoke deflector on the underside of a signal gantry, and even then they were getting through. It's just I didn't want them to just rub a mark in the paintwork, just touching. Through the point work, they were flawless, and it really is a joy to watch these running. There's not even a hint that they have any kind of trouble anywhere on the track, and it leaves you with this feeling that they could be trusted to run unattended for hour after hour with no problems whatsoever. Truly graceful gliding through Weir Yard. All in all, these are an incredible model, pushing the limits of plastic injection moulding to the absolute limits and really show what is possible from ready-to-run rolling stock. I really like this see-through mesh side, and if you look on the inside there's no bleed through of the colour, and that's actually really difficult to achieve. These holes aren't clogged with paint, but the yellow on the outside and the white on the inside don't bleed into each other. That is actually really difficult to be done, but it has been done, and there's the proof of it. White, no sign of yellow. Yellow, no sign of white. That, along with that chain link down there, are two big standout features for me. When it comes to running on the layout, I had these behind my Alco FA A+B unit, and they ran flawlessly all the way round. I did have to remove a smoke deflector from a signal gantry just to make sure they would just fit within the loading gauge of wear yard, but once I did that, they would happily trundle around for hour after hour without any issues whatsoever. And for something with such a top-heavy look to it, this cast chassis really works well to keep the low centre of gravity and make these super smooth, super reliable runners. I'd like to thank Roka Prototype Models for sending these three over, and we've got a link in the description box down below to help you find these. And as I said before, they can be bought singly for £91 each, or if you want a special bundle deal, you can get all of the running numbers of a particular livery option, or there's also the option to buy all 44 at a special bundle price, and Roka Prototype Models will ship anywhere in the world. Bear in mind that depending on your cookie settings, their website will show the currency which it believes to be local to you. So in my instance, when I looked at the website, it showed me it in pounds, but if you're based in North America, you will get the dollar value, and there are deals too if you buy 4 or more for qualifying for free postage in certain circumstances. Well, I hope you really enjoyed today's video and found it informative. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments section down below. What do you think about these? And certainly, if you're a North American outline modeler, it really would be great to hear from you, to hear if these are something that are now firmly on your radar, or maybe you've already got some on order. What's your favourite aspects of these models? Certainly for me, I really like that mesh side. It's injection moulded, which does keep the cost down over previous methods which would have involved etched brass sides, and that would have been very expensive. And I like the way that none of the holes were clogged with paint, even though they've got two different colours, inside and outside, and there's absolutely no bleed through of those different colours at all. Really impressed. I also really like the handbrake chains. Now, certainly over here in the UK, more recently, we've seen a lot of models come through with actual really fine chain being used to represent chain in miniature form. And there's been some degree of issues with durability and chains just coming free and needing repair work. And I thought that the moulding of the chain on these models is actually very realistic, and at the same time very robust because it's actually a plastic moulding. But I'd love to know what you guys think about that. Don't forget to tickle that like button, share this video, and also subscribe to the channel to be the first to know about new videos as and when they go up. You can also head on over to Patreon and help support the channel to keep making the videos that you want to see, with a whole host of different tiers of rewards. We've also got that Monday Club wagon still available to order with confidence at the link down below, and we've also got full merch store, so grab yourself a great hoodie or a totally awesome t-shirt, or maybe even a mug to put your cup of tea in. It's all very British, isn't it? But until next time, you take great care of yourself. Happy modelling. Bye for now. Today's video is sponsored by Trainomatic, makers of DCC decoders designed to be fully compatible with every manufacturer's locomotive. Visit train-o-matic.com to browse the full range and see what they've got suitable for you. Additional support comes from Roka Prototype Models, where detail, accuracy and value for money go hand in hand. With their debut model of Safe-Pak Autoracks wowing model railroaders alike, now is your chance to order these in road names and configurations to accurately reproduce autorack workings from 1974 to the present day on your model railroad. Order today from rokamodels.com and see the full range for yourself. I'd like to send out a huge thanks to everybody who supports me on Patreon, and an extra special huge thanks goes out to Anthony Kidson, Offshore Allen, Michael Lockie, Helen Sink, Gary Lewis, David Quinn, Sparky107107, George Botterini, Chris Moss, Robert Steers, Sam Yates, Dale Williams, John N from NC, NYMRish, Jonathan Foster, Peter, Clifford Ison, Larry W. Grant, NI Railways 4000 class, Ian Coulson, Alan Dickerson, Eddie Popper, Karen Nichol, Medwin Williams, Crossways Point Junction, 3B Rail, Jennifer Horton, and James Beckett. Thank you. Without you guys, I couldn't do this.